Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans, welcome to Talking in Ovals. How's everybody doing out there on this Thursday, December 28th of 2023? I am Alex Cuesta. My partner in crime over there is Dave Hyatt. What is going on, brother?
Not much. It's we just had some Christmas here. I just had my daughters, first time I saw them since Christmas, so we just did a little gift unwrapping, and it was a good time. I just found out that Flow Sports is going to be putting on the New Jersey sectionals, groups, and mid champs right on their app. So you don't even have to go to MouseSplit if you have Flow Sport. So that's pretty cool.
Now let's hope the NJSIA participates and gives us a meet of champs we want to watch by scheduling it properly.
And I have big news. I accepted a job as a high school English teacher at Manasquan High School. So I will be starting there in February. So I'm pumped.
Yeah, and the myth.
Back teaching high school, and I don't know. I'm just
and coaching, teaching and coaching official. You're back to doing what you do, Hyatt.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good stuff. I'll be helping out, volunteer coaching over there at Manasquan, and just fun to get everything back on track. And life is good, man. Absolutely.
So for those keeping score at home, this is episode 68. It's been a pretty wonky few weeks. Last time you heard from us, I believe, was December 11th. And on that show, we had Meg Waldron on. She's a mental performance coach, and it was a really fun show talking to her about what she does in terms of dealing with the psyche of young high school collegiate athletes, working with coaches and things like that. So go back, give that show a listen. But it's been a little wonky. The holiday season, people getting sick, things like that. It was a little tough. That's why you haven't heard from us last week, and then later this week with Christmas and stuff like that. So we're just getting a show in. We're trying to have some fun here, trying to give our listeners. I know we have a few faithful ones, and we appreciate all you.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to give you guys something before we get into all the fun stuff. As always, give us a like, a share, a follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. Tell every single runner, thrower, jumper, and especially throwers and jumpers. We want more of you guys. We haven't talked to a single really thrower. We talked to former throwers that now run an athletic facility. But we want to get some active ones. So please spread that word of mouth. Let them know. Come on this show. We would like it there. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. Just go look for us. You'll see our logo, the track with Talking in Ovals written in there. So we're going to have some fun this week. But before that, Hyatt, we need to chastise some people.
Okay.
We are friends with many a coach. We have had many a coach on here, and we know athletes, and we have not gotten a single PR.
No, and we've not.
Nor has we got. And I know y'all out there are running PRs because that's what happens now, especially early season. Everyone just flows right into it. So we're going to start getting on some butts because we want some PRs. You kids out there, you runners out there deserve recognition when you work hard, and that's what we want to do here. So we're going to start getting on that because people deserve to hear it. And this is our last show of the year, Dave.
It is.
Next time you'll hear from us,
2024.
2024 in January. So, like Dave said, Christmas was just happened. Hope everyone had a great Christmas.
Absolutely.
Hope everyone was safe, saw family and friends. And now I hope that, you're going to have a happy new year coming up soon. So we're excited, and we're going to do something a little different this week. We don't have a guest.
We do not.
It's just going to be Dave and I, but we can hold on to fort. We've done it just before, and we're going to try and do something fun and interesting for you guys.
Been a while, but we can do it.
We can do it. I think we can. So what we're going to do is Dave and I are going to go down basically our top 5, some of our favorite runners, athletes, everything of all time. Probably give a little why about why we like them so much. And I think we're going to try and split it up all time and then also ones that we watch. So it's going to be a little different because Dave brought up a good point. It's kind of different from the favorites that we watch compete as opposed to the all-time greats that we believe are all-time greats, which the all-time greats is really hard. Because
there's so many, like we're gonna forget people like Jim Thorpe or Lasse Viren or like maybe even Jesse Owens, some of the absolute legends. But this is our list. This is who we watched and who we felt. And, I'm going to apologize now that my list is pretty dominant on the distance side. But that's who I was growing up, and that's who I mostly watched compete. So there's a lot of distance runners on my list. So you're just going to have to deal with it.
And mine, I think, is basically all Americans, maybe except for one, because that's kind of where I was. My wheelhouse was very much American centric. And I will say that track meets being on TV, on ESPN and stuff, CBS, like really started to wane out as I got older. I feel like you had a lot more meets on the weekends to watch and things like that. Like obviously the marathons were on, but there was a good string there, Dave, where ESPN was having a good amount of meets on.
Yeah,
and it was cool.
On NBC,
and NBC, and that started to really wane as I was getting through my formative years. So you really had to start searching for it.
Yeah, I mean, and like I remember growing up. Now, when you watch the Olympics, they're on NBC. They're on all these channels free. I remember growing up, we had to order the triple cast. It was like the first time where you could watch every event in every race, and it was awesome. I mean, it was like $100 then, but they had like different sports on at like different times. You could just go to track. It was cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we're gonna start this up. So Dave, I think we should start with our favorites, because I feel like that might be a little bit easier to navigate. Yeah. And then we'll get down to nitty gritty, and we'll start getting some hate mail about our.
I have about 20 people on my list. I just added some as we were getting set 20.
Up. So I have some honorable mentions. So I have top 5 in each. I have top 5 favorites, top 5 all time. Then I have a bunch of honorable mentions. So do you want to go over some of your honorable mentions first?
Yeah. I mean, we can go over guys that I love, or that I respected. All right. I think. Jeez. I mean, I think I'm going to go with Alan Webb first.
I have Alan Webb in there as well. That's one of my honorable mention guys.
I mean, what he did at his age. I mean, I remember when he ran 3:53 and he was on Letterman, like at the mile, and then he went on and broke the U.S. national record at 3:46. He was just an icon. I mean, he was a little older, a little younger than I was, but I remember watching him and Dathan Ritzenheim and Ryan Hall in high school. And I mean, Alan Webb he was the guy. Like, he was making millions of dollars, right out of his freshman year of college. And, he was a part of a great book called Sub 4 by Chris Lear. So, I mean, he's definitely one of my honorable mentions.
One of my honorable mentions is someone who's a fairly recent guy, and it's Usain Bolt. And I think Usain Bolt can easily fit on the top 5 all-time list. And I would be fair if you put him on there, but I think it's, Dave and I are both a little more distance-centric, but Usain Bolt is one of my honorable mentions because
absolutely
just the way he came onto the scene. I mean, it was at a time where you had guys like Asafa Powell and things like that were already dominating and really competing hard for Jamaica. And we thought we were seeing the pinnacle with him and Tyson Gay going at it, and
Justin
Gatlin and all these people. And then all of a sudden, here comes this 6 foot forever string bean guy, not really great form for a, short sprinter. And we heard some hype, right? He was U20 record holder in the 200 meter and things like that. And but we've seen that before. We've seen these great young athletes do the U20 thing, come out, be good pros, but not great, right? And then Usain Bolt comes on and starts beating people and beats him again and over and over. And then he gets to the Olympics, does the Olympic double, gets back to the Olympics, back-to-back world records and Olympic double. And it's just ridiculous. And, his 9.58 and 1919, the 9.58, I think will get broken. The 1919, I don't think is going to get touched.
I think it's the other way.
I think the 1919 is faster.
I mean, they're both really fast.
They're both ridiculous.
But basing off of this year, it definitely seemed like the 1919 was closer than the 100. I mean, not that it was close, maybe a couple 19.3s here or there.
Yeah.
High point. But, I mean, Usain Bolt is the one guy that we had tracked that we could actually talk to normal civilians about, and that they would actually know who he was. He was on the ESPN commercials. Like he definitely marketed himself very, very well, and he was great.
The charisma, and also, and you know what, USATF, or even not USATF, World Athletics. The man wants to be an ambassador. Can we please?
How would you not bring him back? I mean, I don't
put him in commercials again. What are we doing? he should be marketing every single Diamond League meet.
Him and
Every
Michael
single
Johnson
one.
should both be in a commercial together.
Absolutely. So that's one of my honorable
Noah
mentions
Lyles.
with Noah. Yeah, and
All
they
right,
could be
well-
like having like a fake race.
My next honorable mention, you mentioned how we often hear about these stud high school kids.
Yeah.
And one of my honorable mention is one of those who never made it. But some of the most impressive running that I've ever seen was this guy and his teammates at Penn Relays, and that's Obi Moore.
Yep.
Obi Moore came out and ran like 45, 44 point in high school. He was the next thing, he was going to run a 142. He was going to run sub 43. And then, he made some poor choices in life, and, it never panned out for him. I saw a documentary on Flow Sports called Whatever Happened to Obi Moore, and it was really good. It talks about, like things just didn't work out. But I remember him and his boys from your high school in California coming to Penn Relays and running like 308, 310. Like it was just unbelievable. Obi Moore was just one of ththose guys that I thought was Camus. Him and Michael Granville, who ran a 146 in high school to get the record, and then went to UCLA. It was just a shame, and it just makes you wonder: can you run too much at a young age where it can affect you?
I think
in our life. I'm not sure. I think training's better now, but at that point, you just weren't seeing kids run that fast. So it was just amazing, and he was just an absolute juggernaut when he was in high school.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a monster, and he's someone that you hear stories about, right? If you're especially if you're like a 400-meter runner and stuff, you know that name, and he's kind of a cautionary tale about don't get too ahead of yourself, right? Just because you're doing great things now, continue to try and be great and make good decisions, and do that.
He was also fighting. He was running for a high school, but he was running for his club coach, and it was just a lot of like, I don't want you running this. He was kind of torn in a bunch of places, and
where kids shouldn't be.
I'm sure some of it is on him too, but a lot of it was on those people who were supposed to be looking out for him, and it's kind of a shame.
It certainly is. So I'll go on to my next honorable mention. Bernard Lagat. Bernard Lagat's a guy that, he was a great Kenyan runner, an amazing Kenyan runner already, and then someone that appreciated everything that and listen, and it's not like one of those guys that like couldn't break through with the African runners, and he was their lead runner for years, a champion for them, and decided that he loved what America brought him and all the training and all the opportunity and being here, and decided to become a citizen and switched to run for the United States. And that was at the time where I want to say African middle distance running and distance running in general was at its peak, where
he actually missed an Olympics while he was going through the
he did
citizenship.
And and it was the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, the Moroccans, and they were just all just dominant, right? And then Bernard Lagat was the shining light for America that was always just mixing it up. And I just remember watching so many epic races from the 1500 all the way to the 10K with Bernard Lagat, and just you didn't see the African nations strategizing for an American like they did against Bernard Lagat. I remember just watching races where you had guys sacrificing winning races just to box Bernard Lagat out. It was the most ridiculous thing I've saw. And, he would just fight through it, get through a box out, and try to go win. And just watching him was inspiring because he knew what he was doing. He knew when he went from, being a part of the African nations to an American, he was going to get a target on his back. And he was more than willing to do it. And in a short period of time as an American, competing, he is one of the greatest middle distance runners and distance runners in American history. So I love Bernard Lagat.
I remember him having battles with Hisham.
Yep.
He would usually come up just short, but he ran a 326. He ran an American record in the 15 5K. He was a legend. And talk about him, very just like a humble. Seems like an amazing guy. And just think about everything that he had to overcome, and just always had a smile on his face. And one of my absolute all-time favorites. Yes,
without a doubt. So why don't we do one more honorable mention each, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of our lists.
Yeah, I have so many. I think I'm going to go with my last honorable mention. I'm going to go with three field guys. I'm just going to throw them on there. A guy that many people might not have known was Lawrence Johnson. He was a pole vaulter at the University of Tennessee. He had flash. He had flair. He was just fun. He was just a stud. He was very athletic. So he was one of my favorites. Sergey Bubka. Come on. I mean, he was before Mondo, an absolute monster. And my last one, I used to love to watch John Godina because he was one of my favorite guys because he actually threw the shot and discus. He competed in both at a very high level. And I just thought that was really cool that he was, because, like you had Adam Nelson shot, but you had John Godina, but it was cool how Godina would just do both. And, it kind of brought me back to that high school teammate or that college teammate, who was that good where he could throw both. So those are three guys that on the field side that I really enjoyed watching compete.
Since you did three, I'm going to do three and cheat as well real quick. And my three are going to be all the ladies. I got to give Allison Felix a shout out. She deserves a spot. She's one of the greatest, if not the greatest American sprinter. Sydney McLaughlin is quickly coming up on that title, Sydney McLaughlin-Lavoni. But Allison Felix, I think, still holds that crown for now. She's not the world record holder that Sydney is, but just in terms of impact on the American teams,
the
Olympic teams, and the longevity, and the fact that she just wrapped it up a little over a year ago is absolutely insane. I feel like I was watching her quite literally my whole life. So,
and I loved how she was proving, hey, yeah, I have a family and kids. I'm a mom, but just because I have a kid doesn't mean that I can't come back and kick your ass.
Her swag and her moxie or something. And she did it with the most disarming smile you'll ever see because she was such a cheery looking person. But when she got on that track and her face got serious, it was no games anymore. So she's one. And I mentioned Sydney. I'm going to put Sydney McLaughlin-Lavoni and Athing Mu together. They've done, and I have chastised them on this podcast. I have given them shit, but there is no doubt that those two are two of my favorite individuals to watch compete. And that is why I chastise them so much, because the fan in me wants to see them compete at every friggin' meet that I can. So I'm putting them both as honorable mentions because I think before it's all said and done, they will sneak onto my top 5 ever favorite watching, but they're still young in their careers. I still want to see more of them. So they're my honorable mentions. And man, we left out so many names, right? We left out like for me, Wilson Kipketer, David Rudisha, Emma Coburn, like so many names we left out that are on my list. But Ingebrigtsen, yeah. So I want to jump in.
Well, so I just have to give
and Robbie Andrews. I got to throw Robbie.
Oh my God, he's up there. Robbie. But I mean, there's a few people that might have been on this list, but I couldn't add them, like Marion Jones, Justin Gatlin,
Flojo.
People who I loved watching, Flojo, but you don't know. I mean, Flojo's different because there was never anything concrete.
But we know
per se. I mean, I have
even Tyson Gay, like another one where
I mean there's a lot of people, Maurice Green and
Mo was an honorable mention down there too. Noah Lyles was one of my honorable mentions that I could have said, but there's so many names, and I think it's great now that we're going through a golden era of American track, especially. So all these names are up there, but let's start.
Stephen A. Smith would say this is a fluid list.
A fluid list. So who is your number 5 on your all-time, your top 5 favorite athletes that you've watched compete?
That I've watched. Remember, this is very distance biased. I apologize for that. Number 5 is probably going to be Ale Gebrselassie.
Gebrselassie is a monster.
He just kind of changed everything. He shattered every record in cross country and track, and he was just an absolute monster. I loved watching him run. He always wasn't afraid to just take it and run fast, and he was just an absolute. He was like this little guy from Ethiopia, tiny, small, but he was just absolutely unbelievable.
He certainly was. Gebrselassie was amazing. And it's funny because as you hear on this list, you're going to hear the difference between Dave, who definitely is much more distance oriented, and me, who enjoyed the track a lot more. I was more of a track guy. I like cross country, but I was more of a track guy. So my 5th guy is someone who you've heard on the show before, Kadavis Robinson. He was one of the people that inspired me to be a middle distance runner. I mean, he's a sub 144 guy. Ran 143.68, never broke through with an Olympic medal, but he was an Olympian. He was competitive at Worlds and just watching him, and you mentioned the longevity with Allison Felix. Khadivas Robinson had incredible longevity in the
Absolutely.
sport too, running into his 40s at a elite level. So Khadivas is my number five I've ever watched. So Dave, who's your number four?
Keeping along with those lines, Bekele. Can you see Bekele?
Yes.
I mean, he kind of came around right after Gabor Szalesi and kind of said, all right, you have every record. I'm going to shatter every single one of them.
Quite literally torch passing.
And yeah, it was just like, all right, Ali's like, I'm done. I'm going to bump up. Here you go, 10K. And he went out and shattered. I think he might have been the first guy under 27.
Yep.
And like 12:40 something. Like, it was just like running times that were like, how is this humanly possible? But like, and just watching him just dominate. He was absolutely into. Guy was like 5'1", like 100 pounds, but just was an absolute monster. So Bekele is absolutely one of my all-time favorites.
So one of the most memorable people on this list, my number four, is a woman, which I know is surprising, but we mentioned Allison Felix with all of her longevity. This woman was incredible from
I have a guess.
from the late 1980s to up to 2000, like early 2000s, Gail Devers.
Loved her.
And my favorite memory of Gail Devers, I think the one that people will remember her by more than her prowess on the track, was her nails.
Fingernails.
Her nails were always so wrapped around, and they were crazy. And I just remember just watching her set up and curious how she never broke them on the start, right? Because sprinters are down there. But outside of that, just talking about her accomplishments, three-time Olympic champion, back-to-back 100-meter champion in the Olympics from 92 to 96, winning it in America, which is even better. That Atlanta one in 96 was incredible. And again, one of my first memories of watching track. 92, a little fuzzy. I was 4, but then 96 comes around, 8 years old. I'm much more aware. I thoroughly remember her winning there. And then World Championships. He's a 5-time gold medalist there, 3-time silver medalist, indoor champion, dominant with 4 golds, and just so much to go on. And Gail is just
what I love though is it wasn't just the 100.
Yeah, no, she was
hurdles.
Good. She was a great 100-meter hurdler. Yep,
she would have won. I don't know if it was the Olympics or Worlds, but she like fell over the last hurdle. I mean, just the fact that she could be world class in both events, like.
And she was, because she was the champion in 93, 95, 99 for the 100-meter hurdles in Worlds. So not the Olympics, but Worlds. She's still a world champion in those events. So yeah, she was everything you want in a short sprinter.
I still love her and Gwen Torrence.
Gwen Torrence was another.
They were just so much fun to watch. I mean, wow.
So Gail comes in at 4 for me.
She's a good one, man.
Who's your number 3?
3?
Yep.
Is going to be Mr. Gold Shoes himself, Michael Johnson.
Yes, it's a good one.
I mean, 1996 was, he was great in the late 80s. 92, I think that's when he still has the world record. He split like 42.4x4. He was just a machine. Like, he didn't lose the 200 or the 400. I know he lost that fluky 150 up, against Adam and Bailey, but I mean, he was just pure money, and he just stood up so straight, and he had that Baylor pedigree. He
reinvented form. Nobody, when he was coming out, his form was middle distance form. It was very incorrect. He wasn't
very straight up, very erect.
Yep. He ran like an 800-meter runner, and it just worked. And he reinvented everything that people thought about sprinting for him.
Unreal. And he just didn't lose.
No, it was just that drive to win, and world record holder obviously in the 400 to 200. So
4x4,
4x4, and with Manchester's finest Andrew Valmon still being a part of that 4x4 team.
Yeah.
But Andrew, we're coming after you. You're coming on the show whether you like it or not. But
just think about the balls it takes and the absolute confidence. I'm going to rock these gold shoes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to win with these gold shoes. Like, I just like in 96, home turf at Atlanta. It was just, it was so much fun to watch.
He's the type of guy that I would love to see him and Michael Norman just line up against each other.
I think Michael Johnson would wipe the floor with him, but
I think it depends on which Michael Norman we're seeing. If it's a world's Michael Norman we just saw,
I don't know, man.
It will be competitive. But it's, that's one of those what if things. So that's an amazing one. Obviously one of the top 5 sprinters of all time, Michael Johnson. So that's a great pick. So my number 3 is I consider this person to be the best athlete in the history of running, of just athletics. Ashton
Best
Eaton,
athlete, huh?
best athlete, Ashton
Well,
Eaton.
well, yeah.
The decathlete to me, every year, your decathlete gold medalist is the best athlete in the world. They're the top at 10 different events through, was it 2 days, 3 days they compete? 2 days?
Yeah.
2 days, which is grueling. He had, I think does he still have the world record or did it get broken?
I don't know.
But he was the second decathlete to break the 9,000 point barrier. And he's incredible. He's a 2-time gold medalist in 2012, 2016 Olympic Games, 2-time world champion, 2013, 2015, indoors in the HEP 3 times. It's just incredible guy. And we don't give enough credit to our decathletes. And Ashton Eaton was just so much fun to watch. And
He was
and my thing, I think what sold it with me is he was a great 1,500 meter runner, like a really good 1,500 meter guy. And you didn't see that from your decathlete. It's like really fast, like sub-4. And it's ridiculous how fast he was. So I love it. Ashton's my number 3. Who's your 2?
My 2, another distance runner.
Surprise.
Wait, so far I have Gabba Lacey, Bekele, Johnson. I'm gonna have 2 tied at my number 2 spot because
I'll take it.
Because I'm like that. I got Nordi Morsley and Hisham El Garouche.
I love it.
They were just both like absolutely amazing. I mean, we start off with the Algerian best Nordine Morsley with PRs of 144, 327, 344. He ran a 1303. He was El Garouche before El Garouche just shattered everyone. Mile, 1500. I mean, he was just unreal. I mean, when he ran a 344, I was like, this is not going to be broken anytime soon. Crazy. I mean, he was just so much fun to watch. I just love myself some Morsley. And then, I mean, Hisham El Garouche, I'm not sure if you'll find a better 5,000 1,500 guy in the history of our sport. I mean, dude ran a 343 flat, something like that. A 326 flat. I'm sure he was under 13 5K. Just but like kind of like Ingebrigtsen in a sense. Like he had some struggles on the big stage. It was almost like that competitive actual race was harder for him. He was better kind of like Ingebrigtsen where goes out fast and he can just control the pace and go. And he just battled with your guy Bernard all the time. It was amazing. But Hisham, love him. He's my number 2.
And it's interesting because he's actually my number 2 all-time guy. So I'll talk about him a little more there. We'll kind of go over a little more because I just want to talk about him more later. But I'll go to my number 2 that I've watched, Jeremy Warner. Jeremy Warner was a 400-meter stud, and it feels like it was a blip. Even though Jeremy Warner did have longevity, it felt so fast that he was on top. And it was one of those things, he always wore the Oakley sunglasses, the very high tint Oakley sunglasses. And there's a rule in running. If you're going to rock sunglasses, you better go win. And the one thing about Jeremy Warner is he didn't lose. I mean, he has, I think he's a 43-second guy. What was his PR? He was in the 43s.
Oh, yeah. Hands down. Absolutely.
Yeah. So his PR is 43.45.
Yeah. He's a multiple world champ. I'm sure he won the Olympics.
He won the Olympics in 2004 in the 400 open, and then in 04 and 08 on the 4x4, taking second in Beijing in 08. He's a 2-time world champion in the 400 in 05 and 07, 4x4 multiple times. I mean, the guy was just so much fun to watch, and it was just the way he ran it. It was so fluid. He did not look like he was trying. When Jeremy Warner was running, it was just you wanted to watch it. It was poetry on the track, and I just remember being a young guy looking at it, and a guy that had wheels myself, just being inspired watching him run. It was just so much fun. And the confidence that he had. He carried himself like a guy that knew he was going to win every time he got on the track. So love me some Jeremy Warner.
I think people forget that the late 80s through a lot of the 2000s, if you were a stud 400-meter runner, you went to Baylor and you ran under Clyde Hart. Like,
Yep.
I mean, Baylor was the place to go
It was a factory.
for 400-meter runners. Clyde Hart
Absolute
was
factory,
a phenomenal coach, you know, but I mean, that's just where people went to run a fast 4.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your number one all-time favorite athlete to watch compete?
All right. This is, people are not going to agree with this, but it's my list, so I don't care. I was a American distance runner in the 90s, and there was one guy who I absolutely always looked up for. Never really had a chance of winning any race because of the Kenyans and the Ethiopians, but Bob Kennedy was my guy, man. He was my guy. Listen,
So many generations.
when he
American
ran
distance
12:58 and he broke 13 minutes as an American, it was a big deal. It was absolutely tremendous. I loved him. I love Todd Williams, but I got to give Bob the edge. It just because he put out there he was not afraid to race anybody, and he got down to under 13 minutes. So Bob Kennedy was just my absolute favorite runner to watch of all time that I watch with my own eyes.
See, I never got to see Bob Kennedy until he was like an older guy, and he was still competing late in age, and he was still fast. The one thing about Bob Kennedy that I know, though, there was always the question, who's the next pre, right? That's always been a big thing. There could be an argument to be made that Bob Kennedy filled those shoes because he inspired so many American distance runners to just, and like you said, that moxie. He had a very similar moxie to Pre, where he wasn't scared, and he showed he wasn't scared. He would get in the lead of races, no problem, like, and really mix it up, and had a lot of success in his career. Like you said, sub 13, which
Like,
unheard of at the time.
he would go train with the Africans, you know,
Yeah.
like he was trying to progress the sport because he realized like we can't keep doing what we're doing here in America. We have to expand. We have to go out. So he kind of made it so that like you saw yourself that you could do this as a profession if you're going to. I just love Bob. He was absolutely just. I loved him in college run at Indiana.
Yeah.
You know, like he was just fun, and he was fast, and he was my guy.
Yeah, Bob Kennedy is someone, again, like I said, I didn't get to see him run much, but I had his poster on my wall because if you were a middle distance runner, you had his poster. Absolutely. Free and Bob Kennedy were the two posters everybody had. So my favorite top guy is going to be no surprise to anyone my generation. Nick Symmonds was my favorite guy to watch compete. Now, Nick does not have all the accolades that so many guys has.
It's a 142 guy.
But he was a 142 guy. He's a silver medalist in the World Championships over in 2013 in Moscow. And for me, it was the way he ran. I was a sit and kick guy. That was very much my style. And you were always told, especially in high school, like it works in high school, maybe a little bit in college. If you want to get to the higher level, got to learn how to compete. And at the time, we were going from the Johnny Moore, the Cadivas Robinson style of run up front, be competitive, and that's the best way to compete internationally. And it was successful. Johnny's amazing. Cadivas was great. And even Dwayne Solomon came from that same school and had success, right? Nick was different. Nick was a D3 kid, went to Willamette University in Oregon, a 4-time national champion in both the 15 and 800 meter, and just a phenom in the D3 level that you really didn't hear of until all of a sudden, here he comes beating your Cadivas Robinsons, beating your guys that were well known, onto being the guy that held the torch, I want to say, for at least an Olympics or two. He had a solid 5-year run, and I think Nick would have had a longer run if he didn't hate the system. He was a guy that fought the system, you know, wanted to get athlete sponsorships, did the henna tattoo, got in trouble for that, and is someone that is now making a ridiculously good career on YouTube, doing a lot of like lifting things. He's always been a gym junkie, but the inspiration of watching him get out in dead last while everyone else is out running a 49.50, he's running a 53, to come back and win a race in a 144. So it was ridiculous to watch, but you always knew when Nick Symmonds was in a race, it didn't matter where he was. By the end of the race, you will see him with ridiculously bad form going like a bat out of hell for 100 meters, Whether he won or not, who knew? But it was always exciting, and I love watching Nick Simmons compete.
Him and Robbie were very similar in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, they were. Robbie, and the thing is, Robbie, I think had more top end speed than Nick Simmons. Nick Simmons just had balls.
Yeah,
I think it really was just, and Robbie obviously had a lot of balls. The guy's amazing runner. We love Robbie Andrews here, but it was just something about the way Nick did. It was just, it was different. It was different, and for a time, I think it was one of the more exciting things Americans had to look forward to every single year in the 800. It wasn't the Bowerman Mile that took the show for a few years. It was Nick Simmons running the 8, which is weird over in Oregon, and he was an Oregon favorite. So that's my favorite guy to watch. So now,
like, and I still think that I'm probably forgetting guys, but
100%.
Yeah,
absolutely forgetting guys. But so let's go to our 5 all-time legends. Now, I'm not putting this in a list of who I think is the all-time greatest. These are my 5 favorite legends. So these might be a little different than people. These are my 5 favorite. We can go on who the all-time greatest is. And like you said, you mentioned Jesse Owens. There's a case that even though Jesse Owens doesn't have all these records, could be the all-time greatest. There's so many cases for so many different athletes. I'm giving it more as my favorite 5 legends that, as a runner, as an athlete, I looked up to. So however you want to do it, we might have a different style of our list, but let's go with yours. Who's number 5?
Ingebrigtsen.
Ooh, already on the all-time list.
Yeah, I just think he's that he's young. I debated this. Dude's just special, man. Like after this year, he's just, I don't know. There's just something about him. Talk about moxie and confidence and just not being afraid. I mean, he definitely has to clean up his worlds and his Olympics in the 15. He seems to have it figured out 5K. But I mean, dude's 23 and he's just like, I think he's going to have every record by the time that he's done. He's just, he is young and I debated, but I'm like, man, he gave me so much joy this past year watching him run. Like every race I would text you like, see that world record, world record. So I think Ingebrigtsen is already one of the greats. And I think by the time he's done, he's just someone that I just love to watch run. I love to watch him compete.
As long as he keeps pushing guys like Nagus and Woody Kincaid, go get on his shoulder in the 5K. Let's go get an American record there too. But Fisher and everyone, there's so many good Americans. But yeah, Ingebrigtsen is, I think he deserves, and that's a great one to throw on there. So my number 5 is Jim Ryan. Jim Ryan's a guy I never got to watch compete, and it's still, when you're growing up, it's not only someone that runners talked about. Everybody talked about Jim Ryan. Now, it helped that he was a congressman for a little bit, but no one remembers him as a congressman. Everyone remembers what he did as a runner. And
it's like Bill Bradley as a senator.
Exactly. And it's like growing up, even at the time where I was, track was not popular, but everybody knew who Jim Ryan was. Jim Ryan was somebody, he was one of the last people that I think, there was been athletes that have graced Sports Illustrated covers and things like that are runners, but it's like Jim Ryan was a national phenomenon. Jim Ryan was the first ever high schooler to break 4 minutes in a mile, which was absolutely insane. He had multiple American records before they were broken, and just a really inspiring guy and someone that you knew who he was. You knew growing up, and he's my number 5 all time. So what's your 4?
4 is a man that I honestly watched and said, I don't know if anybody will ever be better than this person that I'm watching. And that's hard because, people get faster at time. But
yeah,
I'm not sure we'll ever see anybody as dominant in an event as David Rudisha was. That guy was just special. I mean, just a fact to say that he ran a 140 and he showed up and he was not one of those, oh, it's a championship race, let me take it out slow.
Yeah.
I'm going to bust your ass from the gun. Come and get me. And they couldn't. That's what I think separates him from Kip Keeter, is that he went out and he dominated in big races and he won. I just thought that he was just this freak guy who was you couldn't take it out and beat him. You couldn't take it out slow and beat him. He had that event on lockdown, and it was one of the most impressive things that I've ever seen.
And the thing is, it was like talking to Robbie and like having him like talk to us about what it was like just being in David Rudisha's presence and like competing against him is like we had a guy, he ran sub 141. I thought Wilson Keepketer, yes, he wasn't great in the big stage.
He was awesome.
Keepketer was as close as you could get to getting there. The 141s, I think he did it like 3 times.
It was
He ran like
insane.
141 like 3, 4 times, which I didn't think at the time. It was like, all right, Wilson Keepketer, we'll see for a little while. People will get close, and then David Rudisha comes on his back, quite literally on his back,
Oh yeah.
and just starts destroying it and running one sub 142 or 142 was just automatic for him. And it's so bizarre. And but like you said, it was at the Olympic Games, at the World Championships, he dominated. And I just looked it up, and one thing that I might actually hate about him is he's only a month younger than me.
Right.
Like he's doing all these things in the event that I called my own, and he's a month younger than me. Good job, David Rudisha.
Yeah, like he left early, but he was
on
just
top.
yeah. He's like, all right, I'm done. Just so down. All right, you're
All
number
right.
4.
My number 4 is another one of our former guests, Johnny Gray. Um, Johnny Gray is, again, you start looking up things, and obviously Donovan Brazier has the American record now. But when you're a middle distance runner, what do? You look up the American records, you look up the world records, and you look up some of the fastest times. And consistently in the 800, you're kind of looking at it going, oh, okay, Johnny Gray's there. And then the 600, Johnny Gray is the world best. One of the world, like, not technically a world record, but the 600 is not often run. And then you look and it's Johnny Gray is just everywhere. The 1,000 to 217. Like Johnny Gray is somebody
Gray's
that,
running a 145 at like 57 years old.
Yeah.
Like the guy was just a machine.
just a machine and a monster. 142.6.
And what a
The
great
American
guest. What a
record.
humble guy. Oh my goodness.
An amazing individual. If you haven't gone back and listened to episode, please do. But just again, another all-time great and somebody that, like I said, I used to go and just look at his name and be like, Johnny Gray. Who's this Johnny Gray? And then YouTube became a thing, and it's like, oh, that's Johnny Gray. Like you would just go look up some of the races, and it's like just a fierce individual. Like Dave said, an amazing guest, an amazing person. So that is my number 4. Who is your 3, Dave?
My 3 is a woman who talk about longevity. She actually had some of her best races when she came back in the late 90s. We're talking about Mary Decker Slaney.
Yes.
I mean, she was amazing from like the age 10. She was running ridiculous times. Everyone knows that she got tripped up by Zola Bud, and people like, there's a lot of controversy about that. But I mean, it's funny because I didn't really start watching her until she made her comeback in the 90s and was still running phenomenal
Yeah.
times. I mean, there is some controversy about possible doping, but I don't know. I mean, she's run a 156. She's run a 416 mile, 15:06 5K, 31:35 10K. She was just an absolute legend and
Multiple world champion.
Yeah,
Not Olympic
just-
champion, but world champion, which is
just the fact that as a woman that like she could hold on for that long and make a comeback. I mean, she was just an absolute joy to watch, and she was Mary Kane and then turned into a great runner. Like she had all that pressure as a kid and then was able to withstand it, take a break, come back, and still dominate. So I got Mary Slaney up there.
Yeah, that's a great one. So my number 3 is somebody that, I looked up to, and he was one of the most famous individuals to ever grace a Wheaties box. Now goes by Caitlyn Jenner. Then when he was a world champion, Bruce Jenner, and now I have another decathlete. They both slot in the 3 spots. But although Ashton Eaton is obviously the superior, decathlete in terms of results, Bruce Jenner was larger than life when he was around, and somebody that it's very rare. You don't have many track athletes that go across sports and pop culture like Bruce Jenner did. He was somebody that it didn't matter what sport you were in. You wanted to be like Bruce Jenner. You wanted to compete like he did because he dominated the Olympics when he went and he won. So he was somebody that was just extremely fierce, incredible. And, he set a Olympic world record when he won. So it was just someone that, again, growing up, looking at it, everyone knew who Bruce Jenner was, and it was somebody that, again, as a kid, you look him up, you see the amazing things that he did. So he is my number three.
Right. I mean, like kids now, they only know him for a completely different reasons.
For becoming
I mean,
Caitlyn Jenner, and it's not disrespecting by calling him Bruce. I'm acknowledging who he was at the time
yeah,
when he was doing this, because Caitlyn Jenner didn't set those records. Bruce Jenner did.
yeah, and God, hey, she's happy. God bless her. Happy for
Whatever
her.
Caitlyn wants to do, Caitlyn could do.
Yeah, but absolute stud.
Yeah,
Absolute
awesome.
stud. Are we on what, number two?
You're on number two. Yep.
All right, I'm mentioning a guy that you already mentioned, and you should know this from how much of a geek and a nerd that I was when we had him on our show, and that is Johnny Gray.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Just the longevity and the year after year of putting out sub 145s every year. I mean, there was nothing better than watching him run with that Santa Monica Track Club shirt.
Yep.
He was on that team. Carl Lewis was on that team. That's Mitchell. Like, it was just so much fun to watch them run and compete at the national and at the world level. He was great.
Now it's interesting because my number two is Hikam El Garouch. Now it's interesting because I knew about Hikam El Garouch. I looked him up plenty of times. It's like I had blinders on when I was watching him compete, because obviously I knew he was running against Bernard Lagat, but it's like I don't remember watching him compete. And I was aware in the 2000s, in the late 90s, but it's like he seems like he was an older time. Like, like for me, like it doesn't seem like he was competing then. And now as I look back at it, and even though I watched him, he's still, to me, my second all-time great, because like you said, the things, and his mile record is incredible. And I think it's going to be broken. Yes, I think there's two people that are going to break it. I think both Ingebrigtsen and Nuguse have a shot at both breaking it. And because we've seen them being very fit, and they almost broke the 15. I think they're going to go after the 1600 this year, and they both have a good chance at getting it. But just insane. 343. Oh, yeah. That is, so just so people realize, running a 343 is running 17 miles per hour for a mile the whole time.
Yeah.
17 miles per hour. See if you can sprint 17 miles per hour right now.
For a block.
For a whole block. Try and hold 17 miles per hour. He did it for a full mile. And the thing that was impressive, when Hikam El Garouch was on, there was nobody near him. And that's how good he was at the time. Now you have guys that can compete a little more, but still, when performances like that come out, it is damn near impossible. So he's a great individual runner. He's up there for me as my number two guy. So I think we might agree on number one.
Listen, I think it's pretty obvious. Someone of our age, running distance races, came out with two movies about this guy.
Documentary with Fire on the Track.
Well, Fire on the Track came up first, and then we had
Without Limits, Prefontaine.
Who was your favorite Prefontaine? Did you like
Billy Crudup?
Crudup?
Yeah, I like Billy Crudup better than
Jared Leto.
And I'm a huge Jared Leto fan. I love 30 Seconds to Mars, but I thought Billy Crudup portrayed him better.
See, I thought Leto might have been better as but Without Limits was the better movie.
I also know for a fact that was great that both of them became really good runners, because a lot of the scenes that they did, they obviously weren't running the races, but they were running on the track to get these films. So kudos to both of those guys.
And like, you just love his moxie, his fight against amateurship, and I think the big reason why people have such an affinity for him is the what if.
Yeah, 100%. You don't know. And it was interesting.
He could have gone to 74 Olympics and finished in the same exact place that he was, because he still had, Viren and those guys. Or he could have won, but that he was going to take and go for it. So I think the whole what if, his tragic death, I think that's why he has such a mystique. And, for some reason, he was chosen to be out there for our generation with the movies and the Fire on the Track. So like, he was kind of brought into our generation and he was mainstreamed. So I think that really helped. But I mean, he was my guy, and I never saw him run any race, obviously, live. He was dead before I was born. But just his mystique and his aura. I mean, who didn't want to run for Oregon or Bowerman or Dellinger? You know, like he was just the guy.
Yeah, he was the guy, and like go YouTube some Steve Prefontaine races and even his interviews. He was just such an interesting guy, and the one thing I do love about both Crudup and Leto is they both got that interesting, quirky way that Pre talked and the way that he did things. I think they both got that pretty well down.
But he was the first ever person to compete in Nikes.
Yeah, yeah, and he had the waffle racers that Bowerman was making himself, and you have to believe that one of the biggest regrets of Bowerman was not letting Pre go out and run his race in the Olympics because the winning time was significantly slower than the trials. Now, this isn't saying that Viren wouldn't have matched it, that Viren still wouldn't have beat him, because the class of that race was one of the best 5Ks you will ever see in terms of class. Just with the British men and the Spanish, like there were really good guys. There was probably 4 of them that could have won that race, and you see it in the way that they finish. Like it was just such a high level race. But yeah, the what if of Pre, but it was also, I think it's the what if, but also living up to hype. I think we appreciate people that can actually live up to hype, and Pre had it all. Pre had the hype. He was coming out. He was the #1 recruit from high school because he was a high school, record holder and things like that.
Coos Bay, Oregon.
He put Oregon on the map, even though Oregon was already, before he got there, Bowerman had a national championship program. Yeah. People don't realize that.
Absolutely.
That he had multiple Olympians. It wasn't just Steve Prefontaine that went to 76. He had multiple Olympians on that
72.
team. He was the coach of 72, sorry. That he was the coach of. And it was interesting getting Dave Waddle's perspective on it, being one of his compatriots and being one of the great runners of the time. I think you can hear that Waddle, was kind of like, there were a lot of great guys there. Like, let's not only, like, he obviously respects Steve Prefontaine, but Dave Waddle has some fire to him too. He's like, hey, I was a hell of a runner. I was a gold medalist. I did all these things. I beat Steve Prefontaine. But it's just, like you said, Dave, it's the what if, it's the personality. He was a larger than life personality. He was out there in front with the AAU fighting him and helped change the sport in a lot of ways and became a martyr for what distance running can be in America. Not what it is, but what it can be, because he was competitive on the world stage in the 5K where we didn't necessarily see that. And it was the what if he would eventually went up to the 10K, which he probably would have eventually went up there. What could he have done? Like,
listen, he was one of the only athletes that I would emulate in practice running and at college parties drinking. He just seemed like he had a good time.
He definitely seemed like he had a good time.
Like, listen, and he had the hair, it was like he was cool, man.
Larger than life guy. And again, a distance runner that's cool. You don't find that very often. It's not a thing that, to us, we find distance runners cool because we like runners. To the outside world, most distance runners are, I hate to say it, guys, we're a bunch of nerdy dudes that really aren't that athletic, that are just fast. And that's how a lot of people see us. But a guy like Pre, who was respected, liked, and, there are stories of him just being liked by everyone on campus, football players, basketball players. Like, he was just...
The ladies liked him.
The ladies liked Pre, and he was just a cool guy. And he's someone that you wanted to be like. And now, we'll never know, but listen, his legacy lives on.
He drove a gold MG because he was that guy.
Yeah. Yes, he did. So, everybody...
I mean, there are so many guys...
that we left out.
Oh my God! Like
Jim Thorpe,
now,
Jesse Owens. Even you.
I'm thinking of other guys that I watched, like Steve Holman and Rich Kana, and like
even current Ryan Krauser, Amando Duplantis.
Krauser was on my list of the guys to mention. He's on Mondo.
Yeah, and even the other one that competes with Krauser. What's his name? Kovacs, who was Krauser before Krauser.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
And even on the women's side, you have Sonia Richards-Ross. You have, one of my favorites to watch, and not at the pro level, but what she did in Kentucky with Abby Steiner was just so much fun to watch what she did there.
How about Faith Kipyegon?
Faith Kipyegon. Like, yes, we can go on and on and on. And then there's even marathoners that we haven't mentioned. Like, it's
Paula Radcliffe and Bob Kempinen and like all these great guys. Yeah.
yes.
I mean, Mo Farah.
Mo Farah. I didn't mention Mo. Galen Rupp. Galen Rupp for the Americans getting that silver was something that, it just, there's just so many. And there's not enough time to mention all. Even Emma Coburn being a beacon of light in the steeple that we haven't had. Molly Huddle just doing, like, there's names upon names upon names. But these are our lists. These are who we stand by.
Certainly tweet at us and tell us that our list sucks or that you love it. By all
and our
means.
list is subject to change, right? Because as things occur, it is fluid. All-time greats could be replaced. The current ones that we watch could be replaced. Because like I said, Sydney, a thing, people like Abby Steiner could all eventually end up in that top all-time 5 list. They could end up in
could Sha'Carri.
So could Sha'Carri. Yeah, we didn't even mention Sha'Carri. We didn't mention Noah Lyles. We didn't it is, and and one of my favorite people to watch is I forget his name now. He's the one that's just always in the finals of the 400. He's from Small Island. Who is it? Karani James. Karani James. How is he not one of your favorite athletes to watch? You quite literally, there are 3 things in life that you know. There's death, there's taxes, there's Karani James in the finals of the Olympics and Worlds.
I thought he was 45 years old. He's like 32.
Yeah. Yeah. But he's been around. He's been going to the final for damn near a decade.
He's great.
And he's just always in the finals. He is a former world champion. He's won a world championship. It's not like he's a slouch, but he's just always in the finals. He never misses. The guy just knows how to compete.
And then there's those other what ifs, like, what's his face in the 800?
Donovan Brazier.
Yeah.
What if Donovan Brazier stayed? And you know what? There still is hope for Donovan.
I don't even think he's 30 yet.
No, there still is hope for Donovan. Middle distance people, they don't get their careers are done probably around 32 is when you're fully out of peak. He's got time. Donovan could still get back on that horse. And then you have guys that are coming up. We have our Bryce Hoppel. We have our buddy Clayton. And we have plenty of people that we have to look forward to. And even on the international stage, Amos is still doing his thing in the 800. Like, there are still so many great athletes.
Do this in 5 years, and there's some high school kid now would be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and and it's listen, it is.
Someone like an Ingebrigtsen could certainly climb up the list.
Yes. Listen, anyone could be replaced, and Jakob Ingebrigtsen. If we did this list next year, I guarantee Jakob Ingebrigtsen will break into my top 5 all time to watch.
Faith too, probably.
Faith Kipyegon, and if a thing and Sydney run more than 2 races, then I'll probably put them up there too.
Or if Noah keeps on winning. Listen, we are in a golden era of track. Arian Knighton's what, 19?
We are in a golden era of track. And Fanbola, isn't he like 18?
Oh, yes. Yeah, yes.
He's 18. Then you have Femke Bol, who is another one who we didn't mention. Delilah Muhammad, who's on the back end, but Delilah in her peak before Sydney got there was a freaking blast to watch. There's so many. We can go on and on and on. But unfortunately, this podcast does have to eventually come to.
You know what? And you know what? Like, I'm even having second guesses now over my list, but that's my list that I put out there. And you like it or you don't. Obviously, we kind of did the old layup thing with Prefontaine, but you just got to be honest. And at that time in my life, even now, like, he was the man.
Maybe next year we could do something like this again, but we'll see if somebody like David Verberger or someone else or would want to come on and give us a sprinter's perspective.
Yeah, man.
Do something like that. We can get like a sprinter to come on and give us
a top 5 track and field athletes from New Jersey.
Could do that. Top 5 track and field. And that's another thing I want to give a shout out to anybody. If you are not from Jersey listening to this, please message us. Tell us who are your top coaches in the state that we should get in touch with.
Let's go.
Tell us your best sports, track riders that we should get in touch with. If you have any connections, give them to us. Your top athletes, maybe your all-time greats from your state that we might not know about, that maybe never made it big, but are legends where you are that or you can get us in touch with. We want to talk to them. That's the purpose of the show. We want people to know about you, about people about people from your state. So please, get that out there to us because we would love to have them on. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what we want. So that will wrap up this episode of Talking in Ovals. It was a little different. We didn't have our guest. We didn't do our normal thing, but I thought we brought something fun. Especially, we try to reach the casual fans. I don't think this one's going to reach as many casuals as it would. This is definitely a little bit of us nerding out. But, I mean, if you love running, if you enjoy watching track, if you enjoy watching marathons, XC, and things like that, I hope you enjoyed our list. Like Dave said, tweet at us, comments, do all that stuff. If you agree, let us know. If you think we're morons, only tell Dave. Don't tell me. I'll cry.
That's fine.
But
you can make 10 lists out of the people that we didn't add here.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah. You know what? We didn't include like only collegiate greats. We didn't include like, and there's some people that maybe just love the college sports and will remember your college dominant people that never went and did it in pros.
Like Edward Cheserek.
Like an Edward Cheserek who might be finding something in the marathon. Okay.
He ran a nice marathon.
Ches had a really good premiere in the marathon.
Yeah. But there's so many lists that you could have, and ours are definitely subject to a change too. So
yeah, we didn't have Maddie Centrowitz on the list, and Maddie Centrowitz, one of my favorite people to watch of his tech, but not in my top 5. All right, everybody. If you like what you heard today, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go look for us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. Dave, before we hop out of here, anything else that you want to add?
Just want to thank all of our fans and wish everyone an amazing 2024. Crazy that we're already in the year 2024 almost, but everyone out there, have a safe holiday and have a great year.
Yep. Everyone have a safe and happy new year. We'll be back next week with the show, obviously. And be safe out there. Have fun. And we're out of here. Everyone, so long.